Today on LA Currents, what do you get with 30 police officers and 24 horses? The LAPD Mounted Unit. They monitor protests, police the city, and provide essential crowd control. Next, Los Angeles employs more than 50,000 people. Can you imagine being part of the team that is recruiting, training, testing, and supporting in one of the largest cities in the nation? First, he's an author, a former beat cop, and the newly elected district attorney. George Gascón is here to discuss his role, primary responsibilities, and what it's like to represent LA County. The Los Angeles District Attorney's Office is the largest local district attorney's office in the United States, and today we are joined by the district attorney. So nice to have you
Hello,
here.
Maria.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Good, thank you.
Good.
What do you consider to be the responsibilities that are part of your job as being the district attorney here in Los Angeles?
Well, there are many, but I would say that the largest part of my work is obviously ensuring that we work with other partners, both in law enforcement, but the community, public health officials, to make sure that we enhance the security and the public health of our community. In doing so, we have a tremendous responsibility to make sure that victims of crimes are being attended to, that we provide trauma-informed care. But we also have a responsibility to the accused. There's a reality, especially in our communities, that over 80% of the people that are accused today will be victims or have been victims in the past. In fact, if you go to our prisons or you go to our jails, when you're talking about women, over 85% of the women that are accused of a crime have themselves been a victim of a crime. Men is usually over 80%. So it's understanding that you have to provide a holistic approach to our work, because if you don't, you continue to create victims in the future. We, as a country, have one of the highest recidivism rates of any industrialized nation in the world, sometimes hovering as high as 70%. And recidivism rate really is a failure rate. That means that these are cases where there is a system intervention and the intervention doesn't work. And that is one of the reasons why I'm pushing so aggressively to start bringing science and data into the way that we do our work to really inform our practices and move away from the things that haven't worked in the past, that have continued to create insecurity in our community. And then on top of all that, we in this nation also face a reckoning time when it comes with the issue of racism. The reality is that public institutions and the criminal legal system is very much part of that, has seen over and over the evidence of racism, systemic racism in our practices, on our work, and it is impossible for us as a democracy to continue to do business as we always have and not address this issue that has increasingly become more apparent. And by the way, when I say increasingly become more apparent, it's been here. Right. But I think the last year, the murder of George Floyd and others have really brought to bear what probably people in the African American community have known for their entire life. And I believe that part of my job is not only acknowledging that reality, but addressing it so that we start moving in a different direction.
The prison system, as you have said before, is not working. But how then does the district attorney's office, when it comes to prosecuting criminal cases, have any impact, with the exception of keeping people out of the prison system? How do you have impact on the prison system?
Well, there are multiple ways that we do, right? I mean, one of the things, and I often tell people, I wish if lawyers not only had to swear their allegiance to the Constitution, but we also had to do like medical doctors and take an oath and do no harm, right? So one of the first things that we have to do when we're addressing a case is we have to analyze what would be the best intervention for that case. We have on the one extreme, right, we have very dangerous people, right? That have to be incapacitated, and that in our system means they have to be put in jails and prisons because they are dangerous at that moment. The fact that they're dangerous at the moment in time doesn't mean that they will be dangerous forever. Some people may, and other people won't, right? So you have to entertain that redemption and rehabilitation are a component of our work. So when you're creating that intervention, which will lead to somebody being incarcerated, you have to try to project out what kind of opportunities are you going to provide the prison system to have the capacity to provide for rehabilitation so this person may be reintegrated in our community. Another fact that is often not discussed is about 95% of the people that we send to prison are coming back out. But if we're overstacking people in our prison system, then we take away the capacity from our correctional system to be able to provide the rehabilitative opportunities that a good system should have. So part of the work is addressing that. The other part is on the other end of the spectrum, right? So we go from the very dangerous to the people that are not dangerous, right? Is what is the right intervention for those people? Do we have mental health issues? Do we have substance dependence? Is there houselessness? Are there other issues on board that actually putting somebody in a concrete box is going to make them worse, right? Are there other interventions? And then you have people in the middle, right, that are neither very dangerous but are not very safe, and we have to be very surgical about the way that we do our work. So while clearly running a prison system is not my job is to make sure that the people that we put there, that we put them in such a condition that the prison system can do their job, and that we avoid putting people in that system that shouldn't go there, because history tells us they're going to actually do worse if they're put in that setting.
You yourself were a former policeman, you were here in Los Angeles, no less. So how do you feel about working with the police, and do you consider yourself an ally to the police? Because I know that sometimes it feels as if there's a bit of a conflict there somewhat.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, as the prosecutor, you should not be an ally of the police. You are a partner, and there's a difference between alliances and partnerships. There are lanes where we're going to work together because we need one another, and I consider myself a partner, and the perfect example is when I'm talking about the community violence reduction program, or when I'm talking about working in this with the alternatives to incarceration in STEM police stations. But we're also the gatekeepers of the system, and part of being a gatekeeper is ensuring that not only police but public officials are playing by the rules, and when they're not, that they're being held accountable. And that is a central component of what I get elected to do and what the role of the district attorney's office is. So I think often people feel like you are in a team and you and the police are on the same team against the world, and that is a dangerous approach, and frankly that mentality has brought us to what we are today, where in many cases we have lost the legitimacy in front of so many communities, and frankly that's the reason why I got elected, because too many people felt that my predecessor was in the same team as the police, and that was a mistake. There was a community concern that during these times where we have seen increases in hate crimes, that removing hate crime enhancements and enhancements to protect other vulnerable victims was sending the wrong message. And I had some conversations with some of these community activists. Some of them, quite frankly, were strong supporters of mine, others were not. And I came to the conclusion during those conversations, and I actually said that publicly, I said, we will bring back the enhancements in hate crimes and vulnerable victims crime for the time being until we begin to work on better solutions. But I also said, look, if hate crime enhancements worked, why is it that hate crimes have been on the increase in the last 4 or 5 years while the enhancements were in place? Right. The reason why hate crimes were going up, even with enhancements, is for two reasons. Number one, enhancements clearly do not work in terms of reducing crime, but we have seen an increase in hate crimes because we have leaders in this country that very openly have stoked fears and have fed the whole concept of hate. And when you have leaders that are stoking the fears and give people a license to be hateful, you're going to have hate. And enhancements and the criminal justice system, by the way, are not going to fix any of that. We need to rewire the way that we deal with our community and the messaging that leaders put out. We have a role in the criminal justice system to hold people accountable that cross the line.
It's been really fascinating talking to you. I do wish we had a lot more time. Thank you so much.
Okay, Maria, thank you.
Officer Eric Coffey with the LAPD Mounted Unit shares his experiences and offers us an exclusive behind-the-scenes look at the LAPD's state-of-the-art Police Equestrian Center and their four-legged partners. The first recorded mounted police force was in London in 1758. Cut to 200 years later, and Los Angeles gets a volunteer force in 1981. And in 1988, it all became official, and that's where we are today. We are at the home base of the LAPD Mounted Police Force, and I am delighted to be joined by the expert about the entire place, Officer Eric Coffey. First of all, this is really cool, and I've never met a police officer who wears spurs.
Yes, I certainly do. I wear spurs.
All right, what exactly is the LAPD Mounted Police Force?
LAPD Mounted Unit is basically a police officer on a horse. Instead of four tires like you have on a police car, we have four hooves, and we do our thing every day, whether that be crime suppression like patrol on a horse, or search and rescue, or maybe a community engagement. It is literally horseback patrol.
This is really a working unit.
Right, this is a working unit. So we go out to some of the highest crime areas in the city, and we talked to criminals in the past, and they've told us, you know, we see a police car go by, we know they're not going to come back in quite a while, but we start looking around and see 10 and 15 horses in the area, and we go, what in the world's going on? Maybe we shouldn't do what we're about to do. So it is a very unique tool to suppress crime. When we go to an area, crime immediately drops.
Oh, wow. So let's go meet all of your partners.
Come on in.
So you said you have 24 horses.
24 horses at the current time right now. They're all quarter horses. They're all geldings, which are male horses.
Sturdy.
They're sturdy. They do well with our training. They're not big and massive horses because we do a lot of crime suppression. We are out in the streets. We're not just standing there. We're up and down off the horse. So when you start, especially for someone like me that's shorter, when I start trying to get up and down off of a massive horse, it becomes a very long day. Getting a good police horse is a very difficult task, which we're always looking for. Most horses are not very good at being in the streets of like Hollywood and Highland.
Right.
That is not something that most horses want to do. So finding that specific horse is very difficult. We buy horses off of demeanor, not off of training. So if somebody puts, you know, tons of money into training their horse to do this and that, and we take them to Hollywood and Highland, and a bus goes by and they freak out,
spook.
That's not the horse for us.
Right.
This is an important horse. I believe this horse was named Spirit, ironically, when we first brought him in. He was about 5 years old then. We brought him in, and I don't know if anyone remembers, but Metropolitan Division has SWAT, Canine, Mounted Unit. We have numerous different units within Metropolitan Division, but one of them is the SWAT team. We did an event. Unfortunately, it was on a day. The anniversary day of one of our officers was named R.J. Cottle, who was killed in Afghanistan. Huge horse family. He was killed in Afghanistan in March 24th of 2010. So we talked to his wife and family and said, hey, you know what, we'd love to name a horse after him. We had a huge event here. I'm talking thousands of people here. Did a huge ceremony with one of our youngest horses, which was about 5. I want to say he's about 8 now. Brought the horse out, had a big renaming ceremony after, obviously, our fallen officer, RJ. So this horse will be here probably almost 2 decades now. So RJ obviously will be remembered because of that. So
He's listening. RJ.
yeah.
RJ, he totally ignoring me, but RJ, thank you for your service.
This is our arena that we warm up every day. We do our training. Rob Morales is one of our officers, and Ernie is the horse that he's on for the day. This is probably his third or fourth day in a row that he's been working, so his warm-up consists of a little bit less. So he's already walked him and trotted him, so now he's doing a nice, leisure, slow lope, just figuring out if the horse's mind is right for the day. So like right here, Rob's side passing left and right. He's just kind of seeing what he's got for the day, so he'll go left and right. So if he sees something in the street that he needs to go by, maybe it's a flare or something, he'll be side pass to the left, which means move your horse to the left or right, and goes right by it. So we'll come over here. I'll show you. Rob, can you bring Ernie over? This is the attire that the horse uses out in the streets. He's got his own badge. 114 is
Does that match?
114 is our division
Okay.
number that we have. So Metropolitan Division 114 is our division number. Today we're working South LA, so we're getting him ready to.
So when you
head
say he's
down.
working South LA, we're going to see that happen, but really they're
Yeah.
just going to patrol?
Yeah, so we're going down to South Los Angeles. There's an increase of crime, so what better tool to use than this officer on a horse, just like I told you before, is a huge visual presence of police in the area. So we use Ernie and we use Rob in the streets of South LA today. Probably the worst part of our job is to do all the police officer funerals.
Oh.
So it's a military tradition to do a riderless. It's called the riderless horse
Yeah,
detail.
That's very emotional.
And also for a horse, it's a military tradition to use a dark colored horse. And I don't know if you've seen it, but they invert the boots and put it backwards. It signifies like it's the commander's last stand going into a battle. So we do the riderless horse, and this is our horse that we do it with. He's just probably, if Whitewater wasn't around, because Whitewater is our best horse, this is probably the next best horse. He's
very regal. I see why he's chosen.
He's just an amazing horse. Does everything really, really well.
Hi, Stetson.
He is the centerpiece for that riderless horse detail.
Hi, Stetson.
Yeah.
Thank you for your service.
I say to a lot of people that want to come to this unit, yes, it's a blast riding a horse in the streets of LA, but you got to remember, in the dead of summer, I don't have an air conditioner. In the winter, you're cold. The horses are 1,200 pounds of muscle that you need to deal with, so there's a lot going on. It isn't all smile, wave, and nod. There's a lot to it. We will try the horse for 30 days, testing it from A to Z. We'll start it with just interacting with the other horses, to maybe walking them in the streets, having buses go by. Somebody a little bit more experienced, like myself, will take them in the streets to teach them what in the world to do in the streets. We're training all the time when we're out working in the streets, so I'm not just nonchalantly walking around for no reason.
No screaming, no screaming. Then no screaming.
Is he a sheep?
A boy. That one's Ernie and this one's Chavalito. What do you think? Cool? You get a lot of kids that say, this is the first time I've pet a horse, this is the first time I've seen a horse. And they just love it. And then, and the best part is this is the first time that they see a horse, and guess who has it? A police officer. How cool? How neat is that?
What are you looking at?
Attorney Aram Kouyoumdjian is the Assistant General Manager for the Office of Workplace Equity. We chat with him about his process to level the playing field, produce access for everyone, and encourage diversity. Librarian, lab technician, accounting clerk, photographer, auditor, auto painter, tree surgeon. The employment opportunities for the City of Los Angeles are as diverse as the city itself, and the Personnel Department is there to help in all aspects of employment. I'm delighted today to be joined by the Assistant Manager of the Personnel Department, Aram Kouyoumdjian. I said it, I'm so happy. So nice to have you here.
Great to be here.
All right, as Assistant General Manager, you oversee a vast array of departments within this department. How do they all fit together and what are they?
It's quite the complement of divisions that I oversee, primarily dedicated to public safety hiring all the public safety related jobs in the city of LA. So that starts with police officer and firefighter, all the way to park ranger, animal control officer, or traffic officer. And that involves recruitment, testing, interviews, written tests, physical abilities tests, and the like, as well as a fully vetted background investigation in order to make sure that these candidates are suited for the very, very critical positions that they are trying to obtain.
Sure.
The Medical Services Division handles medical screenings, occupational health for all of the city employees as well as potential or prospective employees. It also has a psychology section that does psych evaluations on police and firefighter candidates. Interestingly, they also handle medical care at the city's 3 jails. They have specific dispensaries within the jails, and they see to the medical needs of any arrestees. So that's medical services, and the Office of Workplace Equity is dedicated to ensuring equal opportunity within the city, and it does so by investigating any complaints of equity violations that we get, but also developing policies and fostering a culture of inclusion within the city itself.
You know, I mentioned earlier all those different categories, and that was just, tip of the iceberg as to what the opportunities were within the city of Los Angeles to work as a city employee. You've obviously chosen that working for the city is a positive thing. What are some of the nice things about working for the city of Los Angeles that may not come top to mind?
There are 2 things that I personally appreciate. I appreciate the size, frankly. I love the fact that it is a large organization, so there are a lot of opportunities. I mean, look at the number of subjects that we've touched on in just the last few minutes of all the things that I'm able to do. I don't make widgets all day, right? So people who are looking for different opportunities, there are upwards of 40 departments in the city, so literally almost any job that you can imagine is out there for you to get. We have over 1,000 job classifications that we hire for.
Wow.
So the opportunities are vast, and given that it's a large structure, the promotional opportunities are also there as well. So that's one thing that I really like about it. The other thing that really attracted me to public sector employment, first to LAUSD and now to the city, is the impact that you make. I mean, this is a place where you change the way things are done. So if you're not happy with how something's being done in your neighborhood or a particular city service is being provided, this is where we make the change. And when people have complaints about the way things are done, I always say, well, we're the agents of change, right? It's up to us to effectuate better systems. And not everything that we do is perfect, but I promise you, we come to work every day trying to make things better.
Well, I also know that during the pandemic, so many things had to shift. Everybody did, as you mentioned earlier, go virtual and have this opportunity to do their position from home. Within the personnel department, I would imagine that some policies and procedures that were put into place worked very efficiently and probably will be kept that way. Did the personnel department incorporate things that they think they're going to keep even after people go back into the workplace?
Absolutely. I mean, the amount of activity that we migrated online is truly remarkable, and Obviously, we're going to keep a lot of that because it makes access so much easier. But we also found that in certain instances, productivity improved because especially for employees who have considerable commutes, well, they weren't spending 2-3 hours on the road each day, so just their exhaustion factor was less because they weren't having to come into a building far from their home every day. So in some instances, like I said, it did allow for opportunity, and we're definitely going to assess what has been an improvement and keep those, and whatever didn't work as well, then we're going to have to find new adjustments.
Where are we on the road to equity and inclusion when it comes to LA? I mean, how far along are we? You mentioned earlier that LA already had a very broad and open-minded and succinct path towards equity. Are we moving fast enough?
We're moving fast. I don't know if we'll ever move fast enough, right? Because there's always more that can be done, but we are doing a lot. Like I mentioned, aside from policy development, we have under our new Chief Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Officer, a whole bevy of initiatives. And it started with citywide implicit bias training that over 40,000 city employees have now taken just in the course of this past spring. I mentioned that she's going to be rolling out a citywide cultural study in order to kind of get a baseline of where we are in our inclusion efforts, and that's going to be followed by a whole host of additional training opportunities in order to foster inclusion. The fact that we're having these conversations with so much more regularity, the fact that we are retraining ourselves to look at things through the equity lens are themselves indicators of progress, and I'm proud of that work.
You're dealing with people, and people have different needs, and people have different hopes, and people have different dreams. How does the personnel department at large support the employees of the City of Los Angeles? They have these protection mechanisms. Do they have education mechanisms? Do they have advancement mechanisms? What are some of the things that, as an employee of the City of Los Angeles, you can utilize the personnel department for? So
the personnel department really supports employees from pre-hire to retirement, right? So it's not just that we're hiring you, but we're bringing you on board. We have training divisions, so we do both mandated as well as voluntary trainings on a large scale. A lot of it through virtual resources and tools. We have support mechanisms through our HR specialists. We have promotional opportunities that go through us. We handle the benefits department, so all of the benefits choices that employees are making come through personnel. We have the Office of Workplace Equity in order to keep us safe in terms of equity violations. We have occupational safety that keeps us safe in terms of trip hazards and chemicals and things of that nature. We have the medical services division, as I mentioned, for screenings and things of that nature. So it's really a very, very broad effort to keep employees engaged and to keep employees content and happy with city employment up until the time they decide that, they're going to go on to another chapter in their lives. There is rumors out there in many, many, many sectors that there is a deficit of employees. Are there lots and lots of opportunities within the city right now? Is now a good time for somebody who might be looking for a career change or might be looking for employment that has security? Is this a good time to try to get a job with the city? This is a good time because with some of the federal stimulus dollars, the city did a great job kind of reaching a budgetary stability, and so hiring is back, and we are very active in hiring. So anybody who's interested in city employment, where you do get the advantage of a number of benefits, satisfactory job, and making an impact, this is the place to be.